supposed to be here, and then I've got you two. Okay. I need an agenda.
Oh, third, yeah.
How are you? Two. Hey, look, here's the agenda. One moment, please. Watch the game while you guys do. You need help
Are
with
there
that printer,
agendas
don't
out
you?
there?
Okay. Good evening.
Recording in progress.
There we go. All right, good evening, everybody. It's 7 p.m. It is Monday, November 13th, 2023. If I could please ensure your cell phones are silenced and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. You can go ahead and take the roll, please.
Councilmember Birch?
Aye.
Here.
Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Smith.
Cheryl's not, sorry.
Councilmember Holland.
Present.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Here.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Alderman.
Here.
All right, since this is a workshop, we don't need to excuse the missing council members this evening. Mr. Boyce, we'll kick it over to you to get started.
Okay, so the first item up was to speak a little bit more about the property tax proposal to not increase the tax by 1%. We did, and I put certified numbers from Cowlitz County on your desk. Everything looks the same except the new construction went up. So if you remember, so here's what I presented last time. So the new construction was at $3,634. The new certified totals comes in at $10,429. So little bit different there. Everything else is the same because so again we look at the bottom of the last sheet. 2023, the levy for Woodland was $861,487.
Thank you, sir.
And again, that was reduced by 1.4 million a year. We, I guess I should turn on the microphone. Sorry about that. So the current year, 2023, the levy was set at 861,487. And again, that was down about 1.4 million when we annexed into the fire district. That was the cost of the fire service contract. So we reduced that to pass, trying to make it dollar neutral for the citizens when we annexed into the city. So that means if this council was to increase the property tax by the statute allows you to increase it by 1%, that would be $8,615. The mayor has recommended no 1% increase. So we're looking for council input or discussion. If we don't have consensus, we'll present an ordinance at the next meeting, next regular meeting, for the 0% increase. So just looking for some discussion, some guidance from council.
We do need to bring one of them back, whether it be to increase or not increase, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we need some guidance from council for the next meeting, whether or not to bring it forward with the 1% increase or 0% increase. Mrs. Dowdy.
I suggest we keep it at the 0% increase for this next year.
That's my thinking as well.
Excuse me? $8,615.
Mrs. Rounds has expressed that she is not interested in increasing it either.
What do you need, a motion?
No, it's a workshop, so we're just,
No, just looking for consensus
Trying to get
on
a
what we need
feel
to bring
for-
forward.
I was at one point, I was looking to add the 1%. That way we can start putting some money aside, start building on, so we can do some things with roads and stuff like that. But I thought it was gonna be a lot larger number than that. So I kinda changed kind of my way of thinking, instead of really wanting the rest of the city for the lynch mob, because we all are getting tired of taxes and being raised up over $8,000. I don't see I think it's better if we don't.
So that would be a consensus then.
okay, so I will prepare an ordinance, and we have to word it a certain way, saying there's a 0% increase and a $0 increase. So we'll have that before you at the next meeting.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Boyce.
Okay.
Review of the sewer fund expenditure charges.
Changes.
Oh, changes, sorry.
Yep, so, in going back to your budget book, sewer fund 402, let me get the page for you. Uh,
14, 15? 15?
Yeah, so page 15. So we had, the line item is repairs, maintenance, project. Let's see. Yeah, so it's the 1.55 million expenditure item titled Repairs Maintenance Project. So actually, we're not changing any numbers, but we had talked about two different projects that the fund we were considering for the fund. The one we put in here, the idea was Waltz Meats was attempting or wanting to help upsize the sewer line to their facility. They are outside the city limits, but they pay the rate plus a half percentage. And we had some fixes to that line we wanted to do also, because there were bellies in the line causing some sediment buildup, put it that way. So they agreed to pay us over 4 years to reimburse their portion of the project. I may turn to the Public Works Director to give a few more specifics, but that's what we were contemplating to do in this budget. We decided that the biosolid tank, which we discussed with council before, was probably a bigger priority for this fund. The Public Works Director thinks she can bring it in for about the 1.5 million. In that sense, we wouldn't have to change the expenditure appropriation. However, on the revenue side, if you go up a little further to the revenues, you can see we have a line item entitled Waltz Meats Payments for sewer and repair capacity. And again, they were going to pay over 4 years, $400,000 to the city. The change we would like to make is to eliminate that revenue source and from Fund 422, which is entitled Sewer Utility Reserves, there's a balance of $698,000 in that fund right now. We would like to transfer the same amount, the 400,000, from that fund to the sewer fund to cover the expense. So I guess we're looking for guidance from council. Do you want to prioritize the biosolid tank over the Waltz Meats project, or do you want neither project? The Public Works Director can talk to you about the merits of both projects and help you understand why we prioritize the one over the other.
The biosolids tank is a priority because it's required by the Department of Ecology. There is no choice on that. The Waltz Meats is whether or not we want to accept additional discharge into our system. At this time, we haven't completed an analysis and a full evaluation, so I don't feel there's a need to put that in the budget yet, and plus we haven't negotiated with Waltz Meats fully in order to have some contract in place to be able to collect that revenue. It's just all via emails and phone conversations and Zoom meetings. You don't have a choice with the biosolids tank. You have to do something at the sewer plant, so that's a priority based on the Department of Ecology, and Waltz Meats can wait at this time because they will not be discharging unless we authorize it. It also has to go through the Department of Ecology, and then we would engineer it based on that, and they would be helping with those costs. Any questions?
When they're
Ms. Rick.
when they're paying the bill, they're taking time to pay it, do they pay interest or charges or anything?
When Waltz Meats would pay it?
Yeah,
That hasn't been negotiated at this time, so it's something that council could say how they want to have that at that time. Yeah, so nothing's been negotiated because we haven't come to an agreement, and we don't really know what size we need the lines to be because a full analysis has not been done yet to determine what the final price is going to be.
The reason I ask that is when we borrow money, we gotta pay something. So it
Correct.
should be
Agreed.
both ways.
Agreed.
Mrs. Dowdy.
Well, I definitely feel the biosolid tank is definitely our priority at this time.
Correct.
That is something we have been discussing for months, as something the Department of Ecology has
Written a letter.
mandated
Mhm.
and said this must get done.
Correct.
So I don't think that's something that we can continue to put off at this time at all.
Right.
When is that due to be done? Is there a due date we have to have it done by?
We need to complete it by next year.
Oh, by next year, okay.
Mr. Alderman.
Yeah, going back to the front of it here, is sewer fund 402. You're talking about the sewer increasing at 2.6%. If we take the 400,000 or whatever we need to do the bio project out of that, do we still need to increase the sewer rates? Because we're already paying so much for water rates and stuff like that, and we kept the sewer rates down to counteract the water rates. Do we still need to bring them up?
Yes, we do, because there are some sewer projects further down the line that will need to be done, and we don't want to be in a situation again where we have to have a large increase to the ratepayers to take care of those projects when
So
they're
you're
due.
just making a small adjustment now, so you're not doing a big one and everybody having a heart attack
Right,
later on.
and realistically, when the rate study was completed, no one was contemplating 8% interest year after year. So the expenditures for the sewer fund are going up just like everyone's personal budgets are. But I would recommend we keep that 2.67.
That's fine, I also agree, we ought to do the bio thing. We need to stay in good graces with everybody, so don't get in trouble before we do a Waltz Meat project.
Mrs. Dowdy.
Is that leaving enough in our reserve if we're transferring that much out of the reserve at this time?
Yeah, I believe so. I think we'll still have an emergency reserve in place that's adequate. And again, as time goes on, we'll be building that reserve for those future projects.
Okay.
Anything else on that topic?
Okay, so I'm not hearing any pushback against that, so we will change the revenue side of the budget to show that transfer from 422 to 402 in the amount of 400,000, and eliminate the Waltz Meats revenue of $400,000.
All right. And moving on to the review of other non-major funds.
Okay, this might be the part where you get tired of hearing me speak. So we've already gone through the major funds. So I want to hit on some of these smaller funds that are also in the budget. Excuse me.
Page on page.
Yeah. It would be
So we're on page, here, let me scroll down. I should have brought a mouse to attach to the computer. I think it's page 6. So right after the general fund, we have Fund 002, Petty Cash Change Fund.
general fund total.
Mm-hmm.
It's right after the general fund, so page. let me just
It says
confirm.
at the top, 6
We
and
don't have page
17.
numbers on this.
They're in the bottom right hand corner.
So page
Oh,
6.
gee. Which one? Yeah. Tiny.
All right, so this is always kind of a wash. It's the petty cash change fund set at $850. It always stays at $850. For instance, if someone has to use petty cash for some reason, we end up charging it to the fund it's applicable to. Let's say Mr. Goddard had a purchase he had to make quickly, he could dip into that, and then we charge that fund later, and then it reimburses the petty cash fund. So, yeah, so not a lot going on there. The next fund, Fund 003, the Advanced Travel Revolving Fund, we phased that out a couple of years ago, but you see that 2 years ago we had still budgeted for that, so we have to show it until it's phased out, history-wise. Okay, next fund is the Park Fund, but we already went through that. The Street Fund, we did that. Let's see, so 7, 8. Okay, on page 8, I believe. Oh, that helps. All right, so on page 8, we have Fund 105, the document recording fee. That's recording fees that are shared with the city. Right now, we're estimating about $10,000 coming into that fund, maybe about $80 in interest. And I believe that fund, those monies go to the Woodland Action Center for helping the needy. So really, not much change there. You know, it's always in that same $10,000 ballpark. All right, fund.
So, just a second.
Sure.
Just so people are listening,
Yes.
that's a thing that's been in existence since state legislation changed that your document recording fees could go towards
Yes.
housing assistance.
Right.
Okay, just
And
so-
it's.
Just so people are aware.
I don't know when it
with-
went into effect, but it's been in effect since I've been here, seven and a
So
half
when
years.
the city of Woodland did it was under Mayor Monge, so
Okay.
that's how long it's existed, yeah.
Right. Okay, Fund 107, the hotel motel tax. So we had I need to update this. We had the hotel motel, well, we call it the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee that met on, I believe, the 8th. There were 3 applications. The Chamber of Commerce, it was recommended they receive $50,000. Planners Days, it was recommended they receive $4,000. And the Lilac Gardens, it was recommended they receive $8,000. So all the applications we received were awarded, and
My plan is to put that into the expenditure budget for consideration when council authorizes the entire budget. Council can make a change to that if it likes, but if it does, it has to reconvene the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee before it makes a change, and they'd have to consider that. They might not agree with council. Council can take whatever action it wants after that group reconvenes.
You have to send the whole package back. You just can't pick and
Okay.
choose out of it.
Right.
So does that leave 30K?
Uh,
Nobody asked for.
No, that's,
Yeah, so it's going to, and I wish I brought that paper with me. It's going to leave an ending fund balance. We're estimating at the end of 2024. I think it's going to be more than that. I want to say closer to 60,000.
Okay. That anybody that, like, let's say the historical museum or somebody who brings,
Sure, as long as it's
People.
tourism related.
Gotcha.
You know, for instance, the Lilac Gardens does a lot of advertising to bring folks to town. The chamber operates the visitor center off that money. We've had events in the past, like 5K races, for instance, like Blooms to Brews. So anything that will bring people to the community, and the idea is to put heads and beds in the hotels to generate more tax, to do more activities for the community.
when that's brought to us, do we see a copy of that budget?
Yeah, you can have the entire application. So every person who applies has to show a budget of how they want to use those funds.
Okay.
I'm okay with it. With 3 applicants, not change anything.
That will, it will come
That
before
comes
with
to
the,
a vote anyway.
it'll come before you. How does that come, does it just get added into the budget and that's
Yeah,
part of
yes.
the final budget?
Right.
Yeah. And then.
And
that's
then
separate.
later we bring contracts to city council with those entities, and you'll have a shot at approving them at that time also.
Before you approve the budget, if anyone wants to pull those out, you can, but again, it has to be the full package, you can't. You have to send the whole package back to the advisory committee. You just can't
Uh-huh.
pull one.
Now, have all the people already applied? Did they get a chance to apply, the people that used to do it?
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
So,
What I heard.
so I sent applications directly to Planters Days, the Chamber, Lilac Gardens, DWR, and that's what we received back.
I'm looking at the museum. No, I'm not in that, so. just looking.
Yeah, I don't think they've requested funds, at least while I've been here, they
I don't
haven't
think so.
not requested funds. So. All right, are any other questions on lodging tax? Okay. Next is Fund 228, and we're getting into the debt service funds. So this debt service fund is for some of the property in the police station we're sitting in right now to construct. We've got, there's that smaller public sales tax, the local public safety tax that comes into this fund. We're carrying a balance, and you can see under the expenses, we expect sorry, the print is small enough that makes it hard for me to read. So the principal amount, yeah, why not? Thought I'd lose the page. Okay, so the principal amount this year is going to be $70,000. Interest, we're going to pay $58,375, and there are some other costs that service fee that amounts to $600.
Where are you looking at?
Page 17, Fund
Page 8.
220.
You're on page 7.
Page
Oh,
eight.
I'm sorry,
Page
page 8 out of 17.
8, yeah.
Page 8, Fund 228, expenses. You can see the
Right, you
line
said
item bond.
$600 there, is that 6,600?
600.
It's 600.
It's a service fee.
This one here.
So you have the principal amount of $70,600 is the service fee. $58,375 is the interest. Okay. All right, the second fund, 229, this is also debt service. You can see the revenue sources here. Basically, it's a contribution of $130,700 from the general fund. There's also a contribution of the same amount, $137,000. It goes on to the next page there, $700 from fire impact fees. And again, this is for land and construction of the police station and the fire station. However, you'll see in the next, the next item that that wasn't enough to finish the fire station. Then there was another bond. So with that 229, the principal cost is not estimated. It's $130,000. Again, we have a service fee of $600 and interest of $130,440. Okay, Fund 230. This was taken out in 2017 to finish the fire station. I believe the amount was right around $500,000 to finish it. So fire impact fees are paying for that. $24,295 we're going to transfer from the fire impact fees. Going down to expenditures, you'll see the principal amount at $35,000, $350 service fee, and interest in the amount of $8,378. The next debt service fund, 232. This was for the Public Works Office. And you can see a contribution from water in the amount of $12,923, from sewer in the same amount, $12,923. The principal amount is $25,000, service fee of $350, and interest in the amount of $6,840. Okay, we did Fund 301, capital. Okay, so going to page 10, Fund 304. This fund's entitled Equipment Acquisition Reserve. And basically, we try to squirrel away a little bit of money every year for future equipment purchases, or, it could be almost anything, a backhoe or a lawnmower or anything like that. We're not anticipating any expenses out of that this next year. We're contributing $10,000 from the general fund, and we should end up with a balance in there of about 131,000. Again, that will be used for a future purchase when necessary. All right. Fund 319, Public Works Bond Fund. This actually has to be, this fund actually needs to be closed. We had inadvertently set up two funds to pay back the debt on the item, so we need to clean that up. So my apologies for that. I should have caught that sooner. Fund 320, entitled Sidewalk Project. This is a project that was already completed, and we're closing out that fund. I think council already took action to close out that fund this year, but we do have some fund balance that was sitting in there over the years, so we have to leave that there until it phases out of the history. All right, Fund 324. This is the WashDOT Exit 21 Feasibility Fund, and so I believe, and Director Coleman, correct me if I'm wrong, this was the fund we used to do the initial traffic studies of the intersections around Exit 21. We had a grant that was from the feds that originally was looking at the East Scott overpass, underpass project. We were able to transfer that to Exit 21 to get the design going, and that's how we got the two concepts of the signalized intersection and the roundabouts. We're moving forward, furthering that design right now, thanks to the county supplying the $2.6 million. So that project still is moving on. The Fund 326, Safe Routes to Schools. I believe that project is also complete. Is that right, Director Coleman?
Can you repeat
The Safe Routes to Schools, Fund 326.
Yeah, that can be closed out. That we did not receive the funding for Safe Routes to School, so it can be closed out, and we have not applied for it again.
Okay, so moving on to the next page. Oops. Page 11. We have Fund 327. So that's the active, it's Transportation Exit 21. So this is the active furthering the design at Exit 21. You see the $2.6 million in the Cowlitz County contribution, and some fund balance that carried over. There's a $88,000 contribution from the street fund and $4,700 from the stormwater fund, and the COG had $600,000 in there also. So that's trying to further the design, so we have a shovel-ready project. We're still looking for construction dollars. As you know, we've applied for grants and made requests to the feds and the state several times, and we'll continue to do so. All right, so Fund 328. So here we have the West Scott Reclamation projects. Director Coleman, maybe you can help me with Fund 328. So we had West Scott Reclamation revenue, and then we show the Guild reclamation to the railroad tracks revenue, and then below you see the expenses for each.
Yeah, so those are the two TIB grants. One is for Westcott, which is from Pacific to the railroad tracks, and the other one is for Gald Road, which is from the railroad tracks to Sherman Way. So those are both grants, so those are all reimbursable except for the 20% that we paid out of pocket.
Right, and you can see that the street fund on 328 Westcott Reclamation is making a contribution of $108,483. You can see Fund 301, the General Reserve Fund, is making a contribution to the Guild's Reclamation to Railroad of $139,513. A contribution from traffic impact fees, $7,100, and another contribution from the street of $131,110. And also, I definitely should mention the TIB grant. You can see $248,777 under the Guild Reclamation. Under the Westcott Reclamation, the TIB grant is paying $237,278.
I want to mention that for the 2024 budget, the only thing that is being transferred over into 2024 is what's remaining. The majority of it has been paid out in 2023, so this is just for closing it out, the last 10% or so. Because it'll be completed this year, you just have closeout dollars, so that's what these dollars are representing. Because remember, they're $3 million projects, so you're only seeing a small portion that's left.
Okay. Moving on to Fund 329 at the bottom of page 12. You see the Davidson Avenue water main project. We had to work with BNSF to basically get a water main under the tracks, which took several years to do. I believe that project is complete now, so.
Yep, 100% complete, and that's on Davidson or Westcott.
Right.
We did both.
So we do have some fund balance sitting in there that we will have to close out.
Right.
And return to the funds that contributed that money. So I'm thinking, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I'm thinking that's the water fund that money will go back to.
Would that be before we approve the budget or after?
Well, if I can get it done this year, I will. If not, it may bleed into the following year. So if we can get it before council and get it closed out, we can zero out this budget for 2024. If not, we'll leave it there and close it out in 2024.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you took these funds out of the X funds over here and put it over here for these projects.
Right.
Instead of putting them back there, since we already took off our fund, can we start another fund, like start a little kitty and start building up onto like street repairs, stuff like that?
Well,
They have to go back in.
this was taken from water funds, so it has to be used for a water project. And the reason we set up these capital funds, these 300 funds, is because it's easier to track the project. You know, the projects always get audited, and it's easy to have everything in one place. But it's cleanest to close out the fund, return it to where the source of the money was, and then if you want to start another water project, you can authorize a transfer at that time.
Can I also make a mention? So both those railroad crossings were grant dollars. We received some from the county and we received some from WashDOT. So when we have grant dollars and we have capital projects, we have to have a separate fund to track it for audit reasons. So we have to do it that way as well. And so anytime you see, if it's a water project, you'll see a transfer out of the water budget going into that special fund to be able to support it if there's a match. Or let's say, for instance, you received $500,000 and the project costs $550,000. So you see a $50,000 transfer from water going in to offset that $500,000 that you received. So, and then you also see a revenue fund, which is the county, like let's say the county gave you $500,000. You'll have a revenue fund from the county for $500,000, and that money transfers out and goes into the expenditures because you're receiving that money. And you don't receive it until after you do the project, and then they fill that fund and then it transfers to the, so it's like a
Yeah, so-
checkbook, transferring money from your
It's just
savings
easy
to your
way to track
checking.
it.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
but
that's-
you have to track it that way.
And that's a good point. That's why you see some reserves left after a project's done. Some of that's just done for cash flow, because most of the time you have to incur the expense and then ask for reimbursement from the granting agency. So that's why you see that. Okay. Any other questions there? Okay, so I'll keep moving. All right, so page 12, Fund 330, Lakeshore Drive Pavement and Pedestrian Project. Again, this project is complete. You'll see all zeros in the far right column. So there should be no expenditures, but we have to show it for the history. Fund 331, Pedestrian Railroad Crossing. Again, this project was completed in 2023. So again, it's zeros for 2024. Again, we have to show it for the history. All right, Fund 332, West Scott Waterline Crossing. Again, this project was complete. We're closing it out in 2023. Again, zeros for 2024, and we're closing it out because the project is complete. Fund 334, Lakeshore Sanitary and Water. Again, a project that was completed. So you see zeros for 2024, and then you see the history. Moving on to the next page, page 13. All right, Fund 335, Gun Club Sidewalk and Bike Lane. So again, on the revenue side of things, you'll see a WashDOT grant in the amount of $348,532. Another WashDOT grant in the amount of $204,954. You'll see a transfer from the Stormwater Fund in the amount of $25,000, giving you a total of $580,923. And you can see the expenditures below that for professional services and construction in the same amount, $589.23. Any questions on that? Okay. Fund 336, Gun Club and Overlay ADA Ramp. So you can see a grant in the amount of $372,230. Transfer from transportation impact fees, $25,000. Transfer from the Stormwater Fund, 404, amount of $25,000. And a transfer from the Street Fund in the amount of, excuse me, $41,520. The expenditures consist of professional services, the engineering, and construction. All right, Fund 351. This is the fire impact fees. You can see we have a beginning fund balance we're estimating at $259,000. I'm anticipating $58,000 in fire impact fees. It actually may be higher if some of the larger projects go through. And investment interest around $3,000. It's making two contributions, one to the debt service fund that we went over in the amount of $24,295 to debt service fund 230. Also to debt service fund 229 in the amount of $130,700. So again, those are going towards paying the debt service related to the public safety land that was purchased that is shared with the fire department. All right, Fund 352, park impact fees. All right, you can see beginning fund balance of $58,151, anticipating about $19,221. Again, I'm being conservative. Depends if large projects come through the way we expect. It could be much higher. Investment interest, just $300. And no expenses associated with that, so we're just collecting the balance for a future project. Fund 353, transportation impact fees. As you can see from all the grants, we've exhausted, so there's no fund balance because we were using those for grant matches. We're hoping to receive $95,000 in impact fees. Oh, and what did I do? That was not smooth. My apologies. All right, so the expenditures on the next page, page 14, you'll just see the contribution to 104 in the amount of $88,942. All right, let's see. Then we get into the water fund, which we already reviewed with council. And then next you have the sewer fund, which has already been reviewed. Then we end up at 403, garbage collection. It's at the bottom of page 16 and continues on to page 17. So you can see a beginning fund balance of $65,477. We anticipate to receive revenue in the amount of $808,478 for the collection of garbage. Recycling revenues should come in, we estimate, at $219,585. The expenditures, the city pays the B&O tax on garbage and recycling. Should, you know, we appropriate around $15,000. It usually comes in right around there. The garbage contract, $871,456. Minol is charged a portion for doing the billing at $6,600, and there's the administrative fee of $137,210 that goes back to the general fund. Fund 404, stormwater. On the revenue side, we believe we'll have a beginning fund balance of $43,000. Collects stormwater fees, and then we're estimating close to the same amount we had last year, $111,008. As far as expenditures go, $1,320 to Minol for the billing expense. There's a transfer to Fund 335, which we talked about, in the amount of $79,051. A transfer to 336 for drainage, which we discussed earlier, $25,000. Let's see. Should have lines going all the way across. My apologies. So another 25,000, is that, so we had the transfer to, okay, I misspoke. So the 79,000 is for capital projects. Transfer to 335 is 25,000, and the transfer to Fund 336 is 25,000. Operating supplies in the amount of $1,012. and also a transfer to Fund 327 in the amount of $4,700. All right, Fund.
Are we allowed to ask questions over here?
Not during a workshop. You can when the budget comes up to council for approval. You can ask questions then. Please continue, Mr. Boyce.
Okay. Fund 413, Water Treatment Plant Booster Pump Station. Again, that project's complete, so you see zeros in 2024. But we need to show the history. Fund 414, Water Treatment Plant Capital Project. Again, that's another project that was completed, and we're closing out that fund, so you see the zeros there. Page 17, last page. 421, this is water utility reserves. We're estimating a beginning fund balance of $273,000, investment interest of $750. Water assessments, we believe, and so these are basically connection fees, $80,000 should come in. We don't have any expenses appropriated for 2024. Again, we're saving for the capital projects that are coming. Fund 422, the sewer utility reserves. You can see the beginning fund balance of $698,000. We believe we'll receive interest in the amount of $4,400. Assessments incoming of $64,000. Again, we talked about on the expenditure side adding that transfer to the sewer fund for the biosolid tank project. So you'll see a added expenditure there next time you review this. Then we have Fund 640, utility deposits. Those are zeroed out. The auditors requested we change the way we process those, so that is going away and just being shown for history at this point. So those are the non-major funds. At this point, we were hoping to open it up to council to talk about any changes you might want to make to the budget, additions, subtractions, amendments.
I have a question. I looked all through here, and I haven't seen anything about it. It was a topic we brought up for a short discussion and kind of shuffled off. But isn't Cowles County, the pest control or like dog catchers, the humans, they're disbanding. So we're gonna be responsible for having our own animal control. Is there anywhere in there to where we're to budget, because we have to have something?
Yeah, so in the general fund, see if we can get there quicker. We have an expenditure in the amount of $17,000 for that. It might take me a minute to find it. That's the amount we were paying the Humane Society
Right,
before.
but we're gonna have to create a position because they're going away from it.
Well, we don't really know. The chief is working on this right now. He's been meeting with other jurisdictions to see how we're going to handle this. I'll give my breeze at it and then let the chief fill in the blanks. What we're hoping is going to happen is that the county is going to set up a system for animal control, and we can contract with them. It may include the county and other jurisdictions, or it may just be the county, but nothing's solid yet. So we can't really throw a budget number out there yet because we don't know what the expense is going to be. After hours is going to be a problem. And maybe I should just let the chief expand on that. Do you mind turning on that?
You don't,
Okay, so I met with the executive director, the sheriff, two other chiefs, and one of the city managers from up north met with the executive director today, and we're still trying to negotiate cost. There's no way to put a solid cost or a solid number on the current projection for what we would need by way of animal control, but Kelso County and Longview are establishing new positions in their budgets, and we're still, the numbers are still out there, but the 18,000 that we have in our budget currently, we should be okay. And it would be more of an à la carte type thing per call. Last year, our numbers were pretty low as far as how many animals we had to seize is a bad word, impound, take possession
Deal
of,
with,
and
right.
take it to the Humane Society. So we, if I use those numbers to project what it would be about, there'll be that boarding fee that the Humane Society would charge us, plus whatever the cost would be for us to contract with the respective entity that would be responding. And so we would have to worry about, I guess, put the onus on the officers out in the field to say, okay, is this necessary to impound this animal? We've had animals brought to the PD before. We were able to take them down to the vet to scan to see if they have a chip. If they're chipped, we try to identify the owner. If not, picture on Facebook, say, hey, somebody stopped by to visit with us. He's gonna be here for a few hours. If you don't pick it up, we're gonna take it to the Humane Society. A lot of times that works for us, but I can't guarantee that it's gonna work for us every time.
Right.
The ones that worry me are the vicious animals.
Right.
The nuisance animals that we, and we'll have to discuss what it's gonna look like. We might have to change the municipal code to put the onus back on the owner of said animal to offset some of that cost. But I can't tell you what it's gonna look like because really, no law enforcement agency in the county has an idea what that's gonna look like.
Yeah.
So we're still in the process of trying to negotiate costs. We're still in the process of trying to negotiate how that response is going to look and whether our officers are gonna have to respond initially, triage the situation, and say, yeah, we need an animal control officer to come down and visit us to seize this animal. So, still
I just
up
wanted
in
to
the
bring
air.
it up because I know we didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, and I didn't want something to sneak up on us by saying all of a sudden everybody else is just doing their own thing, and we have to create a position, a job, and place to keep them and everything else. I
Yeah,
just
and we
want to make sure we're doing something down the road there.
We do have a facility in the back to hold an animal,
Your office?
but it's exposed, sometimes, yes. I've had animals running around the PD. But we do have the holding cells for inclement weather, but our, I guess, pen in the back is exposed to the elements. So that's obviously a concern to folks that care about animals, so. We're still working on a whole bunch of stuff, so it's kind of up in the air right now.
Like I said, I just wanted to make sure that it was still in discussion, and something to sneak up on.
No, and I'm trying to avoid that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're part of Clark County. Have we looked into Clark County, what they're doing?
Clark County's doing the same thing that's the model he's proposing, which is something that Clark County does. They no longer provide animal control services. They only provide housing and facilitating adoptions and those type of things. And that's what our current director is leaning towards.
Yeah, so it makes sense for us to contract with someone else. If we had to hire an employee, get a vehicle, create a larger shelter for animals, it just doesn't pencil out with the number of animals we have to deal with. So if we can contract with another entity that has, more resources and more need, it makes sense for the city.
They have time, code enforcement, they have time.
All right, and back to Mr. Boyce's comment. Is there any additions, subtractions, questions about the budget? It is now in your hands.
Right now, now this is just a presentation, right?
This is when you get
This
to pick
is-
it apart.
This is on you now.
Huh?
This is on you now.
Come back here in a half hour, we'll be done.
So if you need time for some of this to sink in, that's fine. We can have another budget meeting, but, you know, we don't have to have all of it tonight, but if you have some ideas that you were contemplating, now might be a good time to hash those out.
Mrs. Holland.
Ms. Coleman, so that I don't have to dig around in my giant 40-pound bag that I drag with me everywhere, how much is the biosolid tank?
The biosolid tank has yet to be fully designed, but it came in initially at about 3 million, and we think we can get it down to about 1.5 million based on working with the Department of Ecology and what the requirements will be.
Gotcha, thank you.
I see there's a few things added in the budget, such as the cops, such as the, what do you call those things, the bulletproof,
The ballistic shields.
Shields, the shields and stuff like that. Are we gonna get, anything from the department heads that say, hey, I really like to have this, or I really need to like it, so we can kinda have understanding how important it is to them, and do we wanna buy that, or do we wanna fix the roads? Our roads are in big
That's
shape.
totally up to council. You've been
Yeah,
given
well-
presentations from the department heads on the importance of what is in this budget.
S-
That's the
But
recommendation.
some of it's hard to find, you know, on
Well,
top.
Well,
Well, I mean-
well, you just poke the paper link.
So
Some
the,
of these guys are new, so.
so the police chief is here, so he can answer questions regarding the ballistic
Well, I already
shields. Or,
asked him. I did personally, but.
Then what exactly are you wanting to talk about?
Well, it's up to you guys, it's not up to me. Is the, getting a police officer more important than fixing the roads so that make them fix some of the problems that we have? Where we're gonna spend our money wisely?
well, and I should also mention too that out of the 861,000 we get in property tax, about 630 of that is due to Prop 1, which goes to the police department. So these expenditures, the Prop 1 money can be used for the 3 officers we fund plus equipment. And so this equipment would come from that pot of money. So, you know, if you wanted to have the general fund make a larger contribution to the street fund, we'd either have to dip into reserve that is that is non-Prop 1 money to do that. And that could be done. We just need to know how you want to do it.
Mrs. Dowdy.
Well, two things. So last year, I know when we were doing budget, we had kind of some wish items that did not make it into the budget. This year, we don't have any of those wish items. Is that correct?
Correct. So,
Okay.
so the department talked about a few. The mayor decided to fund them, and that's why they're included in the
They're
budget.
either in the budget or
If the mayor decided not to, then you'd have an enhancement sheet.
Okay, that's perfect. That's what I wanted to know. Second, I think it is fantastic that we found a way to add a police officer and looking at that as possibly being a resource officer for our schools, because I think that is much needed in our community. And I think that is fantastic that we are trying to find a way to do that, especially with the dollars that are allowed to be used towards our police department, because I think that is something that our community has yelled and screamed about needing for our schools, and I think it's fantastic that we're listening. So I think kudos for finding that.
That's where I'm kinda torn, cause I agree, I love the thought of a school resource officer. Absolutely do, this day and age, with all the school shootings and all the ding-dongs running around, I have grandkids in the school, I totally agree. But the biggest thing you hear people scream about is our city streets, besides the water bill and taxes. That's never gonna quit. But other than that, the biggest thing we hear about, that I hear, is people wanting our streets taken care of.
But
Because
this
they're so
money
far-
is not money that can be earmarked for streets, so it's a moot point.
He just said we can take more out of the general fund.
I guess to clarify, Mr. Boyce, the police officer position, is that being funded through the general fund or through the Prop 1 money? Or is there a portion of each?
Right now, we're contemplating just the regular general fund funds. You know, we don't break it down to whether it's property tax or public utility tax or what, but yeah, the non-restricted general fund funds.
So, how much is that position?
That's what I'm looking for right now. What we decided.
And I don't have it there, so let me,
Because, so with that position though, are we getting another $100,000 car? Or are we still on the every 3-year rotation?
I didn't ask for another car.
Okay.
yeah.
Problem is, we can't get cars this year.
I know.
That's the problem.
So,
And then when you order them, they lose them.
yeah, well, and I didn't.
Get him a
wanna waste
motorcycle.
council- I didn't wanna waste council's time by asking for a car that we're not gonna get. Excuse me.
You know, one of my other concerns too is you get a resource officer, you got one resource officer. What school do you cover?
All of them.
Absolutely.
All of them.
All right.
Just the presence
Yeah, you don't need more
of
than-
them
Yeah, each
in our
school,
schools
each
is
school.
huge.
Okay, so for an officer at step 3, which we put in, the amount would be $144,661. That's with benefits.
So, my suggestion would be open up the transportation plan and pick one of the 40 projects and tell me what you wanna, what street project do you wanna pay for with that money? Because
That's
if we're
what we
doing,
need.
but if we're doing a trade, that's what you would do.
Mhm.
And there's not a lot of those.
And that's what we need to do, is have the council
That's
come
why you're
back and
having
say, hey, I
discussion now,
wanna
Mr.
drop
Burke.
this, I
That-
wanna
but
drop
that's
that.
why we're
Not do it
doing-
right this second.
But that's the point of this workshop.
Yeah, to find out where the money's
So
going.
if you wanted to get the police department of an officer, I would suggest, well, here, I'll just look it up. I have it in my email somewhere.
And I would agree that transportation and water are huge issues in this town. But there are a lot of issues in this town that we can't neglect all the issues just because those are our two biggest. And I think the safety of our children and our staff that work at the schools are also a huge issue. That this is something that has been many years coming, that, in my opinion, this is something that is just as important as our schools and as our streets.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I don't know. I'm pretty passionate about this one. I think that is a pretty important position to fill in our community,
I'd like to get a better
especially
car
with
with
all that
the
happened
money.
last year
I would love to see.
in our schools.
In all
So,
actuality, I would love to see a school resource officer, I really would. I'm just kinda looking, bringing other things up to discuss, because that's something else that, the streets, we all know, we hear it. But like you said, JJC, like he was saying, that's what this is for. To find a project you would wanna do with that $144,000. Could you find something to put it, to use that money for?
Yeah, I wanna do without that police officer, and I wanna do without that, things.
You don't want them to have ballistic shields?
No.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think it's that needed. We haven't had them, yet, they got flak vests,
Okay,
So-
so,
and we got,
someone-
and we do have them locally
So
around.
someone's life
we do
is
have-
less
wait a minute,
important
let
than
me
a
finish.
pothole.
we do rely on other people, other police departments to help, and they do have those. I mean,
All right, so when an officer gets shot, when they're waiting for a shield to come down from Longview, when he gets shot, I'll be the first one to tell his widow, come talk to you.
know about the cop that gets shot just walking around?
I don't think that the conversation is getting anywhere with that one. The ballistic shields are funded through the levy money that comes through. It will just sit there for additional equipment. Mr. Burke, I'm speaking now. It will sit there for additional equipment or salaries. You cannot move that money for those ballistic shields into a pothole or to a street item. So if you are going to remove the police officer for a street project, that is the only money that can be touched and not the ballistic shields.
Right now, this is a council workshop, so we're talking about the things, and
And he's
it's
explaining
your
it.
budget, yeah, your budget, you put together, and we'll decide what we want to buy.
I'm
Then
not,
give me some clear direction.
I'm for push towards a resource officer, first and foremost. Even though I want the streets to be fixed, I think, like Mrs. Dowdy said, the safety of our kids come first.
All right, I'm not seeing any consensus with the removal of that at this point, or the ballistic shields. Any other items to discuss? Additions, subtractions? Questions or concerns? Mrs. Holland?
you know my tell, huh?
Yeah.
So, I have a question. So, do you remember earlier this year, and we had a conversation in Olympia about real estate excise tax?
Okay. I'm trying to remember. That was February, I think?
So, I know.
You can expect everybody to have a memory like you do.
I know.
So, real estate, well, like, kind of like what Longview did with some of the real estate excise tax. And remember when they pulled those back from the county, I think, Longview?
Okay.
I'd have,
I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to remember.
for housing,
For housing, okay. I don't know what they did. I'd have to go back and review that. I don't remember.
because Woodland's like double what the county charges.
Okay.
So that was something I remember asking the deputy clerk treasurer, where do those real estate excise taxes go?
Okay.
Like,
We have those listed in there.
is it in there somewhere
So-
where real estate excise tax?
Yeah, so they go to Fund 301, the General Reserve.
Okay.
Fund. They can also be used for certain construction projects, and we use those often for, grant matches, things like that. But there's a whole host of things that they're used for.
Okay. That was kind of my
Is
question.
that, the REIT funding?
Yes,
Okay,
REIT.
I know REIT.
REIT.
Okay, so,
Sorry.
I know REIT.
I
So
was
those
not
can be
gonna
used
use
for
the-
projects, yes.
Okay.
Yes, okay, I'm in. Go ahead. Now that I know what we're talking about.
So how many is this, has that been, like, what do we collect in those?
So the number, Mr. Boyce, do you have that number? I know that some of those dollars have have gone towards debt service for this facility and the land at one point, because this was a facility. I don't know that we've allocated any other REIT funding for any major project or anything that's
Gotcha.
of note.
I just remember asking, and I could never get out, what is the total we've collected in a year on real estate excise?
So for 2024, we believe estimate for real estate excise tax 1 in the amount of 180,000.
Okay,
REIT 2, 157,300.
150,
7,300.
okay. So that's pretty good.
And that goes where?
The general fund.
General.
Well, it goes to the General Reserve Fund 301.
301.
And then it's transferred to other funds as projects come up that it's needed.
Did you have a project in mind?
I was just, since we were talking numbers, it just seemed like, I remember I asked a couple times and no one ever really gave me what it was for the year.
Gotcha.
I think,
Even-
actually, I think an administrator from a different municipality knew what ours was.
Yes.
And they told me. So,
I saw,
because she knew everybody's.
yes, and there was a reason, I'm trying to remember what the reasoning was that she,
A tiny home village
gotcha.
that Salvation Army's running.
Okay, gotcha. I remember seeing something with the document recording fees come through. I don't remember, can I remember the read?
Yeah.
I can see the matrix in my mind from an email, but I remember more the document recording fees than I do the refunding. But
Yeah.
Okay. Mrs. Dowdy.
Okay. So, Ms. Coleman, correct me if I'm wrong, we do not have much of our park fees left, right, in our park budget?
Park
We-
impact fees,
Right, we use.
$1.26.
Okay, so,
Okay,
so going into next year, we're relying on some of these developments to increase.
Hold on.
Oh, you know what, Pete? I think you're right. It was
The
transportation impact fees for
$1.36 is in
Yeah,
transportation impact fees.
transportation. I am
Okay.
wrong.
There's a
Yes.
balance in the,
It's not very much, though.
I thought
yeah,
I just saw
it's like- it's a-
77,000.
yeah, it's like 50-some thousand.
I thought we used all of it.
No, we didn't because we didn't receive, we have some of it matching funds for the RCO grant.
Oh, okay, that's what
Yeah,
it was, and we
yeah.
didn't get that grant, so we didn't use it.
No, no, we
Okay.
did get the
No, we
grant
did get the
for, we did get the grant for Scott Hill Park. So we
Okay,
have
So we
matching funds.
expect to start the year with 58,000.
58,000, okay.
But it's already spent for the RCO grant at Scott Hill Park, because that's part of our contribution funds.
So okay, back to that. Then most of that is gone, correct?
All of it is gone and then some.
Okay. So with that being said, we're relying on new development to rebuild our park impact fees.
Correct,
To do new projects.
correct.
So-
Like the splash pad on the land that was donated at this time. There's nothing in our new budget for splash pad or anything at this time. Is that correct?
I actually have received a grant for the splash pad, but we haven't utilized it yet because we didn't have the land transfer yet. So I do have a budget from legislative dollars from 2 years ago, and I think it was 80, is that right, Pete? 84 some $1,000 for that.
Okay.
And then I can apply for other grants for the splash pad. We also have some people who have volunteered to donate some time and materials for the splash pad as well.
Okay, and is the land transfer done?
The line transfer is not done yet. I still have to meet with Ben Adobe.
Okay. Thank you.
I just,
To answer your question, there is nothing allocated towards that except.
There is nothing in this budget at this time.
That is
allocated
100%
for that.
correct.
Okay.
so I wanted to clarify something. We don't have a transfer coming out of the park impact fees at this time. So if have we budgeted for the RCO?
Yeah.
So I wonder, we should double check to make sure we budgeted for the match. If we need to transfer some of the park impact fees, we should.
So that's what I wanted to make sure, that any of those matches that we need to still do, we need to make sure that we're budgeting in that.
My apologies for the dollar comment, because I remember specifically that one of them had $1 in it.
Yeah, that's
And we got called out
transportation
on it.
impact
Yes,
fees,
thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, I don't see any, I see the RCO grant, a RCO grant for 100,000 in there, but I don't see a transfer out for an expense for a project. Anything further? All right, well, seeing nothing, we've come to the end of our meeting.
Motion to end meeting?
Moved by Councilmember Dowdy, second by Councilmember Burke. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The time is 8:18.
Recording stopped.